episode 4 chat of season 2 of Wheel of Time. I'm joined by Christopher Navo. I want to give a little heads up and precursor to this in case people haven't seen my message. My internet is going in and off because I am under a massive set of storms that have been going by. I don't know if you can hear thunder, but if you can, it's probably from my end. So if I kind of disappear for a few seconds, I apologize in advance, and I will do my very best to get back to our conversation. But okay, episode 4. So last episode, you and I were feeling a little bit better about some of the stuff that we had seen. Yep. And we gave it a higher rating than we normally do on our 10 scale. So for episode 4, where are we falling on our 10 scale?
Not as good as 3 for me. I'm trying, I think it's just to the point now where I have to kind of just think of it as a regular TV show at this point. Not so much anything from the books, maybe the books as a guide at this point. And that's fine. It's an adaptation. That's what it is. So, but there are just some things about this episode that I loved. And then there were things I did not care for so much. So it does fall right in the middle with a little above the middle, and it falls in under 6 for me.
Okay. I was around 5.5 to 6. And yeah, so I think we should come off the bat and say episode 4 is completely independent of the books. There is no direct comparison to the books in any particular scene. There's themes that are present from the books, but there is no exact scene you can point to and say, yes, that is from this book. So one of the things that I did want to talk to you about this episode is whether or not this is actually a good show, independent of it being an adaptation. Because I think that's kind of what a lot of people are starting to get into the realm of that are hardcore Wheel of Time fans. They're thinking, okay, I need to divorce myself from hoping to see X and Y and just trying to immerse myself in what it is that they're showing me. And I'm genuinely curious if what people are seeing independent of that, if they think that's good. But that's something we can get into as we kind of talk about things a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think this episode really cement that to me, because as a fan of the books, that's what, we're always waiting for those scenes to finally play out that we've read, that we've enjoyed so much. And we know that everything's not going to fit in the book. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be on the thing that was in the book, on the show that was in the book. There's a lot of stuff we don't need on the adaptation.
Yes.
And it's just to the point where I would love to see the scene, but let's see what they do, is kind of how I'm going with it. But as we mentioned last week, when they commit to something, I like them to stick to it and not just change things for cheap shots at shocks or anything like that. I still want to see some good program.
Agreed. Okay, so let's get into the actual timeline of our episode here. So a question I had for you, and for anyone in the chat that wants to answer this, please feel free to. When I was reading the books, my understanding of them being sealed, or a ceiling, not like a ceiling of your house, but SEALING ceiling, was not this actual physical, tangible thing. So obviously at the end of season 1, we see that Ishmael's ceiling is broken by Rand and Moraine when they're at the Eye of the World. That's fine. And then we see at the beginning of this episode that Ishi goes and breaks Lanfear's ceiling. So it seems that they're giving physical ceilings to each person or each Forsaken. Is that what it was in the book? Because that wasn't my understanding on it. It was more of like a meta ceiling, not quite an actual physical thing. Like, this is the marker for Lanfear, this is the marker for Balal type thing. Like, was that something I just missed?
It wasn't specifically for Forsaken themselves. It was just in all, like different seals for the Dark One himself, in my understanding. So, but I do think as seals were getting broken. Now I did, from the way it's described, and they're always carrying these pieces of broken, what is it, collateral or something like that. I don't know the word. It starts with a C, on what the material is for those seals. But it is, yeah, Elena's right there. It's all for the
Struggle.
seals
Yeah, that's what that
for
was
the
my
and the
understanding of it.
dark one.
So, yeah.
So, but as these seals get broken, it's easier for the Forsaken to escape their prison.
Hmm.
Essentially, I think is what it comes down to. But I don't think each Forsaken has their own, personal seal and tomb.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my understanding as well. I just wanted to see if that was the general consensus amongst
Yeah, and
people
everybody is pretty
that
much
it is.
confirming that.
Yeah. Okay. So honestly, this isn't something that I actually hate. I just feel like, and this is where we kind of start to get into the whole notion of, is this good storytelling? Because I feel like this episode, the title of the episode is an ode to Landfair, right? Like the whole episode is supposed to be very Landfair focused.
Mhm.
And I feel like they should have been building up Landfear for the last 3 episodes so that this is a much more significant reveal when it does happen. And if we had more background on the Forsaken as a whole, I feel like this opening scene could have been more impactful for me. Just because we don't really know a whole lot about the Forsaken at this point. I feel like if I didn't have the book knowledge, and this is kind of what I'm getting at, like if we didn't possess the book knowledge, how confused would we be about what the Forsaken are, what their roles are, and what they do? Like, that's kind of my question at this point is like, is the average viewer going to care that he's unleashing a Forsaken and that it's Landfear? Because, like, do we have enough substance with that at this point?
Right. I mean, we only got the briefest of mentions in season 1, where Stefan is warding off the Forsaken. I'm not sure. We're not sure on the count.
Yeah.
There were 8 statuettes that he was warding off there. So I do think we are trimming the fat on the Forsaken
Yeah.
kind of thing, for this show, but it hasn't really been established how many they're going to introduce,
Mhm.
what their roles were in the War of the Shadow. Um, so hopefully, and this is where you have to just really put some trust in these shows
Yeah.
and writers, that they're going to, it's good to have questions. It's good to have these questions, and it's good to have some mystery. But I agree with the Landfear. I don't think. I think when I think we had our suspicions when we were reading the book that Celine is definitely something more, and it's probably
Oh,
something not good,
yeah.
because
I
she's always
messaged you
talking about
immediately. Yeah.
she's always talking about glory, and you're going to be great, and
And
all
she's
about
so
her.
weird. Like she's so
Um,
weird in the book. It's
and she's just
delightful.
really playing this innkeeper role like a little too much, like,
Yeah.
and I think it's to make the audience trust that this is a generally nice person, or a good lay for Rand or somebody like that. So
Yeah.
but it's, I guess the idea is not to make her presented as any sort of threat to Rand and other.
Sure.
But
So
I mean, we all knew who she was. I think even
yeah.
non-book readers,
I mean, that's the thing. But my question more is, do they care? Like that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like, have we given enough substantive plot to this person to genuinely care that this is Landfear? And my personal feeling is no. I feel
Okay.
like had they sprinkled more of her as a singular character over the first 3 episodes, developed more of a relationship between her and Rand other than this just like sexual relationships and the two of them seem to have, because then it would be more impactful later when he declares that he loves her. I was just like, there's not enough development of these two in the first few episodes for it to jump this much in episode 4.
I think it would be cool. And honestly, Robert Jordan didn't really do a lot that I wanted with the Forsaken either. I mean, you
Yeah.
had to kind of read separately about the lore of these guys. So I would love a little bit of a backstory. I think that might have been a cool, like, way to, like you said, flesh out that character a little more, find out who she was. She was like a researcher, from my really limited knowledge on
Yeah.
what she was prior to that. So she was like a researcher, maybe show like one of those futuristic scenes from the past, and have something a little bit play out like that. Maybe a little thing with Luz, since she keeps bringing up that she was in love
She's
with.
hyper obsessed with
Yeah.
Luz, which I mean is fair
Yeah.
to book Lanfear, like 100% fair to book
Mhm.
Lanfear, but we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, a big thing that happens in this episode is that Maureen heads back to Kyrene, which is her ancestral homeland. I take major issue with the way that they are presenting show Maureen at this point, because she is not a likable character. They've really, like, season 1 Maureen wasn't jovial by any means and overly warm, but she wasn't this cold, and she didn't seem this just abrupt with people. And of course, they've tried to imply, okay, when you're severed from the source, it can do so much to a person and their personality and so on and so forth. But I'm like, she's treating Lan terribly. She's treating her sister terribly. Like, it just doesn't come across well, I feel like, to a viewer.
No,
But I
I
think
agree.
you were
Yeah.
right. We were going to get more
Mhm.
with the sister. You called that last episode. So you
Yeah.
definitely were right about that.
Well-known actress, I know. So
Yeah.
Lindsay Duncan. So I knew she was
Yeah.
going to be. I knew they were going to play her out a little more. I don't even remember if she was used in the book. I know there is some Karine game of houses going on,
Yes.
but I don't remember all the names to those people. But I don't think her sister was one of them. But regardless, to the books, to this, yes, I agree. This is what I was talking about earlier, about if you're gonna, change whatever you want to change, fine, but stay consistent with it. In
Yeah.
season 1, you presented a fantastic Moraine Land dynamic.
Yep.
I don't think that should have changed, just for the fact that, as we know, Moraine, even when she's in a helpless vulnerability state, she's still a strong
Yeah.
woman on her own right without the power, and she would find still some purpose. That's how she should come off cold. If you
Yes.
want her to come off cold, is just she's driven by her purpose, not like emotionally attacking, other people's vulnerabilities or emotions.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
that's just the sign of weakness, which Moraine is not, regardless of what media platform you did, just the
Right.
books or the show.
Yeah.
And so I'm the same with Moraine. I'm like, if you're going to be the star of the show, you gotta be likable here.
Yes.
Such a change
So
from season 2
yeah, this was a really big
or 1.
change. I'm not a big fan of it. I really hope that we get back to season 1 Moraine sooner rather than later. So back in Tarvalin, we see that Ninev's got a fancy new room. She's been upgraded because now she's no longer a novice; she's an accepted, and she's got her new outfit as well with the Aja colors on the sleeves. I think this is important that they've made this distinction, so this is a good touch. Okay, so this is something that I found slightly awkward and interesting simultaneously. When I watched the behind the scenes for this episode, Rafe was talking about the fact that they wanted to present that Nynaeve was basically suffering as if like she'd had a miscarriage. And as someone who has had miscarriages, I sat there and I was like, okay, I get the concept of what they're going for, but he should have articulated that as loss. Because with miscarriage, in my experience, it's that you grieve what could have been. And Nynaeve in this scenario knows what it is. Like, she's actively lost her child. So I was happy with the fact that in the show, they show her having this grieving period, because that's something that doesn't happen in the book. And I feel like for how Nynaeve is tailored to be our healer character and she's the protective character, she should have had a mourning period in the book. So this is one of the few changes in the show that I am okay with. I'm like, this makes sense. It just makes sense. But
100% agreed. I love
yeah.
this as well. I also, when I was younger, we lost our child to getting hit by a car uh, during the pregnancy. So
Mhm.
we yeah, totally felt it, and I think that was really well presented. And I love this side of Naive, and
Yeah.
I'm glad she wasn't really treating Egwene like a piece of garbage. She was still not feeling emotionally, charged in like the embrace or anything like that. But she did
Mhm.
eventually put her arm on Egwene,
Yeah.
and she gave her a small smile too. So it wasn't
Yeah.
like she wasn't hostile,
Yeah.
like which is just coming off of Moraine.
Yes.
So yeah, this
It's
was
a
played
rare
out.
episode when Nynaeve is not the most
Yeah.
hostile.
So this thing for Naive was really awesome for me.
Yeah, I
Um,
thought it was important,
in a
and
morbid kind of sense. But
yes.
I want to call out some shout outs to I thought they did a fantastic job for how I think you can tell they put a lot of effort into Tarvalon, because
Yeah.
that overhead shot they come into to zoom down the tower,
Yeah.
I thought was so cool. And then one other thing I want to make of note that they did, I thought was pretty interesting. I think I just caught it in this episode was back in the Two Rivers. It's important for we had the ritual where Egwene becomes a woman,
Yes.
and part of the circle, and she gets to put her hair in the braid. Well, despite that, when she wears her hair unbraided still, because it's just the style, it's not really who she is, so she
Yeah.
still accepts that uh, unbraided hair, and maybe that's because she's a novice or whatever, but that's a touch that was in the books that I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just a small little
Yeah.
thing that caught.
I agree. I think it was important that they had that in for character development. So that is one of the props that I will give the show for this episode. One of the things though that I found very confronting was casual Lan was super weird. And
I called it hippie land Christ superstar.
yeah, I mean that's 100% accurate. So accurate. And it felt so awkward. And I was so taken aback with seeing his hair down. I was like, what
Yeah.
is going on with Lan? It's just so
I
awkward.
was I was waiting for a musical number. I swear I was
Yes, honestly, like
number.
I agree, Elena. I did not love the land stuff either. The one thing I did like was seeing Alana, and like I like Alana's character, so I'm fine with that. But this episode, agreed, had so many unnecessary scenes with the warders and focusing so heavily on the bond. It's like we get it. You do not need to keep repeating the same information because it's not telling the viewer anything new.
No,
And
yeah,
it's not like
this
it's
was all
important.
repetitive. This was all
Yes.
repetitive. I'm waiting for a spin-off of Alana and her Warders. I
Right?
think
Yeah. I mean, they're
I
fine,
agree. I
but
like Alana. Alana does play an important role for
yes.
transitional with Lan, and then there's another surprise that Alana plays.
At the end of
That
the episode. Yeah.
well, I mean, later on, if they
Yes.
play it out, that happens in the books
Yeah.
involving Alana.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious if they do that as well.
So, yeah, there's a couple of questions I have from the end of this episode as to whether or not those are going to be things that are instead of events happening from later books or even in book 3 itself. And I'm hoping that's not the case, but for one of them, I'm pretty adamant that it's going to be. But we see Moraine meet up with Logain, say that 5 times really fast. And I don't, I can't get behind the scene because Maureen should know that because he's been severed from the source, he cannot teach Rand. Like he just can't. So that is another instance I feel like where within the rules that they have established, they're breaking them a little bit. And I'm like, this is awkward. It's just, it feels awkward to me.
Yeah, and especially as we watch this episode later, this scene is going to be kind of redundant. because Rand's not going to be around. Apparently, I don't think
Yeah.
to be taught from from how we know how this episode ends. They're probably
Yeah.
going to leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was a little bit of a redundant scene. Plus, I really, and this is one of my hopes from the book they pull is Rand gets taught by one of the Forsaken, and I kind of hope that actually happens more so.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I think it's a little more taboo, but it's also a little thing that thing. Yeah. This
The
I
dress was awkward.
she looked like Violet Beauregard, blowing up in the blueberry factory.
100%. I mean, yes, you could tell him the
But
basics.
that is how the Carinian dress. They do have like the flowing skirts, so I do appreciate.
They're
The
trying to
dress.
tie in some of the things,
Yeah,
which is
I
fine.
do
Kyle,
appreciate the dress.
yes, we have.
Many times, Kyle,
Yes, we have.
we get reamed about how dull we are.
Exactly. But okay, so the thing that's like awkward, but I guess makes sense is Moraine is basically tempting him to work for her so he can kill himself. And I'm like, this is so awkward.
It's not, it's
But
definitely
I
not a
mean,
Moraine
no,
thing.
it's really not. So yeah, this scene just felt very uncharacteristically Moraine, and I was like, okay, it's fine, but it's not my favorite thing. But when we go back to the tower, Elaine's brief moments in this episode I thought were once again good. She's a sounding board for Egwene, and I think that's
this
been
actress
okay.
is making me like Elaine, and I don't like
She's
it.
very good, honestly. She's really, really good. I don't dislike Elaine the way that you do, but I agree. I think she does elevate the Elaine character
She does
in
a
a
really
positive
amazing
way.
job. Yeah.
So I think that's really good. And one thing I wanted to ask you. So last season, when we have the I'm gonna call it the court scene, basically with the Amerlin, and we have all the head Aja sitting there.
Mhm.
Is Leanne wearing blue? Because in the last few scenes we've seen her, she's now very apparently wearing blue. And my understanding was that the keeper, kind of like the Amerlin, didn't actually like wear their color anymore.
I think the keeper got to, but it wasn't so prominent from my understanding.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I do. I see the difference to that change too. This was a very
okay. That's good to know. So thank you, Patrick. Because I couldn't remember. And
okay.
I was like,
I knew
that
she could wear her colors.
Okay. So yeah, then that makes sense.
It's just like all the costuming in here, though. It's just like everything's bright and
right. They're definitely
in your face. I'm flipping blue,
Yeah, lots and lots of blue, which I mean is fine. But yeah, I was curious about that just because I couldn't remember from the scene from season 1. But the dynamic between Leandrin and Leanne is like they're slowly starting to reveal in this episode. Like, okay, Leandrin's really pushing boundaries here and everything else, which is fine.
So I think, and I think we got that. I did actually appreciate the one line that Leandrin had in the scene with Leanne, and that was, just a reminder that if she falls, you fall. And I thought that was pretty cool foreshadowing. And spoiler alert, I'm sure if you've watching this, you read the books. And I did like that touch. I did like a little bit of that because I think Leanne, like Swan, do have roles to play later on in the books. I thought the Leanne lines, though, were a little interesting too. It sounds like she and Swan are definitely not on the same page. She was pretty much saying, I give her what I pretty much want.
Also, like, where is Swan at this point?
I'm not. They haven't really established that either. If she's actually in the tower, or she's just off traveling somewhere. So that is.
I mean, it seems very awkward. I'm wondering if they just couldn't get a hold of the actress or something. And I'm like, Swan really should be involved at this point. But I mean,
Elena or Patrick, you're right. Elena is confirmed.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get her
next season. I think.
I think there is an episode coming up with Suwon because
Okay.
we did see that
Yes,
season 2
we did
preview,
in the trailer.
and I
Yes.
think that's going to play out kind of that scene from what's supposed to happen in the books in Faldera.
Yes. I think
And
that's
I
gonna
think
happen in Kyrian.
Baron will be there. So I think that hopefully plays out.
Yeah.
And then the one thing they keep playing with is this whole naive Leandrin kind of
Yep.
story.
Relationship.
Yeah, this whole naive is back in the waters, and she like totally turned down the one guy, and Leandrin starts laughing or smiling, and
Yeah.
so but it's at that point I think we get the turn on Leandra because she gets that note, and I think that's when her flip side starts kicking in.
So this is another change that I am okay with
Yeah.
because I felt that Book Leandrin's motivations for why she's Black Aja are not well articulated in the beginning, at least.
Mhm.
I think they're going to make it related to her son. So that's why they've been establishing that in the show. And it's better, I feel, in terms of story development to give Leandrin more of a background if she's going to be like our predominant Black Aja, which she should at this point. So I mean, yeah, no, she's just evil. But I do think, Daniel, they are setting her up to give her more of a reasoning as to why she is Black Aja in this story. So I'm better with that just because I think it's more interesting, at least visually, for a television medium. But let's talk about Perrin for a little bit. I'm gonna just mention it once, as I do per episode. When Elias says, "Look at me, boy," Perrin looks at him and his mouth is once again wide open, as it is for the remainder of this episode. It's fine. But we finally get the term wolf brother in this episode. So we're like inching along with Perrin.
I mean,
like,
Elias here is still giving us vague one line answers to everything. We finally get a little more information here. I still don't. I'm happy that they finally got to this point.
Yep.
But I still was looking for more. I'm like, I wanted a little more information. I like that they established Hopper.
Yes.
The one thing I was interested in is Perrin is having more visual
The weird
imaging
visions. Yeah.
rather than actual. Are they gonna go the dream route, or are they just gonna go with these weird like images that?
Yeah, not
So
entirely
that's
sure.
my only wondering if that's gonna go. But like I said, I am so happy that this is happening
Yeah,
now. So
it's been time. Like they
yeah,
really needed to get to this. So
and
I'm also
Karen
confirmed
needs to just
happy.
push Elias down, talk to me, don't look at me
Yeah,
and stare
stop
at
telling
me.
me that I'm not
Yeah,
gonna like cook
yeah,
flesh soon and give me actual
yeah.
information
And
because
then give your audience, of course, some information as to what's happening.
100%. So they keep going back to Lan and his stolen paper and like whatever.
I'm
Lan
like, why
would
is
never
everybody going
steal
through this
from
mail?
Marie.
Why is everybody stealing mail and reading
Yeah, like
letters? And
Lan would never ever steal from Maureen. It's awkward. It's clunky. I don't like it. I'm like, just move on. The whole plot line with him in this episode, I didn't like, but it is what it is because they kept going back to it for so much of this episode. So, I mean, the thing that really, when it came down to it, the episode is listed as being an hour. And I felt like when the hour passed, I had watched 15 minutes of television. I was like, 15 minutes of actual content happened in this 60-minute episode because so much of that time was with the warders.
Yeah, I feel like this episode, and I like that I do like the approach of fleshing out things.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're fleshing out some of the wrong things.
Agreed.
And they've already established this water thing. And I'm happy they did the first time. I'm very happy of those episode or season 1 episodes.
Yeah, that's our favorite episode.
Those were our strongest.
Yeah.
Was the talks of the campfire and all that about the ward between Warder and Aes Sedai.
Yep.
And then we come back to it. And I'm like, all right, anytime we see Alana's warders, we're going to just have these like stories about relationships between their warders
Yeah.
with each other and with their Aes Sedai. And we're not going to go anywhere.
Yes. So, okay. One thing I want to talk about is Moraine again, but I want to talk about her in the context of this little fact-finding mission that she's going on in Cairhien. I don't get how they feel her being shielded or severed from the source is helpful to the story. Because at this point, it just doesn't feel like it's advancing the plot in any way, shape, or form. And this kind of then comes again into the greater narrative of my question earlier. Are they telling a good story? Because her demeanor when she's walking around in the foregate, is that what it's called? The dingier area, like she acts as if she's still an Aes Sedai, and I'm like, you're standing out dramatically in your outfit and you're asking questions maybe in a way that you shouldn't be. Like, why doesn't she have the one power? Like, how is the story moving forward by her not having the one power? Is it?
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. For one thing, the dress is ridiculous when she's walking through the foregate. She shouldn't be in that. Everyone's looking at her. That's not Moraine again. She's a very low key, keep a low profile kind of person. She uses tons of.
She even says that when she shows up, she wants to keep.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, and I'm not referencing the books here, even though I partly am. I'm still saying they're inconsistent with what they want to do with this character. So you're telling us one thing, but she's showing another side of her, which is like, look at me, I'm a flipping queen, walking down the dirt roads in my bubbly gown, and and it's like, tone it down, girl. Wear those traveling clothes that you
Definitely. Agreed, Chris. It was not too smart. Moraine's not making a lot of great decisions. I mean, I understand that it gives her authority and power there. It's just when you announce at the beginning of the episode that you want to keep a low profile, and then you're literally announcing to everyone that you are a noble woman, those are kind of two distinctly different things. So, I mean, I get it, but I'm like, just pick a lane and stick in that lane for the episode.
That's what I'm saying.
Agreed, Elena. It's a lot of inconsistencies. So, I mean, that whole thing is fine. But Lanfear is once again lamenting about Luz when, take it easy, we'll see you next time, talking about Luz, which I always think is hilarious. I thought this was funny about book Lanfear too. Like, girlfriend is that really hung up ex-girlfriend that just cannot let go. And I'm like, it's been thousands of years and he locked you apparently into the earth. I'm like, it's funny to me, but is it too on the nose? I feel like when she's talking about him, like, do you think people will pick up on the fact that she was referencing Luz type thing, or
I think even the casual audience member knows she was. It's
all about Luz, 100%.
All about
that's true
Luz.
love. Oh yes. I mean, if that's not true love, then I don't know what is. One of the things that we very, very briefly see in this episode is Matt's dice. They are playing at a table. So I'm wondering when luck is kind of going to start to come into the scenario. If it is going to come into the scenario, they might not go that way with show Matt, because really we are seeing so little of show Matt that I'm finding it a little awkward. Because the new actor's great. Like, he's so good. And I keep thinking, why are we not seeing more of him? So I'm hoping in the next few episodes
we just need some more Matt. And it goes back to our hopes that they still give the horn to him in this adaptation.
They've got to give him the horn. If they don't, boy.
I'm holding my breath. They're gonna. I think they're gonna get there. I think they're gonna end up in. I do think they're all gonna end up together.
I think. Well, we'll get to that at the end of our discussion, but it seems quite clear that everyone is heading to Falma, at least in some way, shape, or form.
Right. And yeah, this Min, being shady, this to me, this is just, I think it does make good TV if I just eliminate Min from the books and just follow the show. I do think there is a little bit of a um, interesting take to having Min, work with the Dark Friends, or
Yeah.
presumingly, I I I like to think that she doesn't know that they're Dark Friends, but that's going to change later in this episode, um, with her dream sequence. But I still love I do love these actors together, these Min and Matt.
I think they
I
have a great
almost
dynamic. Yeah.
it, it's because they're so similar and they can
Yes.
connect really well, and they have really connecting scenes. And I do smile every time they have Matt on there, and
Yeah.
definitely wish we got more of Matt. And I'm hoping we get some of those Matt moments, especially as we hit these mid books, because Matt gets some cool stuff. So
100% agree. I think that the two of them are honestly, most actors in the show I think are doing a really great job. So my complaints are never really about the actors themselves. I think, except Aaron, I think everyone does an excellent job. But yeah, I really do like the actress for Min, and I really do like the new actor for Matt, and I think that they feed off of each other very well. It is an interesting way that they're going with these characters, so I'm hoping that it pans out in the end. But yeah, this kind of leads us, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm fine with it. Ishmael is everywhere and now seems to have this teleporting ability that he can be everywhere. And I mean, he's a Forsaken. I don't really fully understand the depth of what he can and cannot do, but it has that kind of like weird end of Game of Thrones feel that like distance doesn't matter. And I don't know if this is him in his dream space kind of thing where he's meeting with people, because we know that that can happen. And obviously, with the end of last episode, he was physically with Perrin. But that makes sense in terms of geography and where he was.
Yeah. Now, geography, I think he is in Falme. I think the scene with him and Min, that's traveling the dream world. So that you can get anywhere really quick. I accept that. I don't think it's a teleportation device like Game of Thrones, so I'm okay with that.
Patrick, our book expert, says that real world or dreams, Ishi can be everywhere. So he's kind of omnipresent, it seems like. But yeah, I think the general consensus is that he wasn't physically there, which is what I'm fine with that. I just feel like the way they're conveying dreams isn't necessarily the best. Like last episode, we were saying with Rand in that sequence, we're like, is he dreaming? Is he not dreaming? Like, I'm hoping that if they're really going to dive into that dream world thing, that we get more clear distinctions.
Yeah, I was talking to my spouse about that, because going back to the parent scene, with more so like we're getting images and less like I'm falling asleep, I'm entering this world of dreams where I can have whole speech with animals, and we can chat with other people in the world and all that. So I hope that is a little more established to what we have going on with that, or whether they decide whatever direction to decide. I just hope that we get consistent. Yeah, exactly.
100%. Okay, dream sequences have blurring at the edges. I'm gonna have to pay more attention to that. Honestly, I haven't actually really caught that all that well, but
there was a cool thing with Min and Ishi, and you could see it was like a flicker of him, like he'd be like in a different.
Yes, I did see the flicker
camera angle and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool. So I think it is showing that sort of like what Patrick was talking about, that blurred image, that flicker of movement. I thought that was a really cool touch.
So we then see that the warders, once again, are now meditating, because Lan is teaching them how to be one with the earth and very zen now that he's Lan Jesus. And it is actually a ruse, we learn, and that they're spying on what Lan has and what's kind of going on in the background for Lan. So this, I think, is a bit more interesting, because at least it gives some substantive plot to why we've been focusing so much on the warders this episode, because up until this point, I kept feeling that it was dragging a little bit too much. But it does become more interesting. But simultaneously, this is then where we kind of start having this juxtaposition between Ran and Lanfear, aka Celine, and the warders. So here's the question that I had while watching, Chris. Celine and Rand are sleeping outside, and there's a building like 10 feet from them. So why are they not inside? That for me was my first question. Second question was, do we think that she summoned the Eyeless to get Rand to kind of expose himself? Do we think that the Eyeless was just randomly tracking Rand, or do we think that the Eyeless was following Moiraine?
I'm going the route of I think she summoned it.
Okay, that was what I thought as well.
Because if they use any kind of content from the book, she's summoning that golem creature in when this is when they're in the portal stone world, the alternate world, and they're traveling to over. So yeah, so I agree. I think she brought it. She played that really well. For blind audiences who are just watching the show, still wondering where her sides fall. I think they did a really good job with that naivety of just somebody who's just saw a man channel or could tell that a man channel.
Yes.
And yeah, that's the direction I'm going. So I do think she summoned that too.
Good. Okay. So defeats the Eyeless. Yeah. Okay, so this kind of brings me into like the big final question where when she revealed, like they do the big reveal of Lanfear, they read what the poem says and they kind of imply that Lanfear is like the strongest Forsaken, yada, yada, yada. Lanfear in the book is, of course, very strong, and there is a power dynamic between her and Ishmael in the book, which I thought was really interesting because she doesn't supplicate to him the way that other people seem to. And I like that dynamic between the two of them. So one, I'm hoping that is something that continues in the show and isn't overridden by the fact that Ishmael has now released her and broken her ceiling and she's in some way indebted to him. So that's part one. Part two is what I was saying earlier in the episode, in that because not enough time was invested in the buildup of why Lanfear is important. Like, had they read that note in episode 1, that would have been so much more impactful for now that we know who Lanfear is and the fact that she's been with the dragon this whole time. Like, make it a more amplified buildup dramatically for me in that moment. But my big question to you is Moiraine stabbing Lanfear our equivalent of her and Balal? Do we think that is the Balal scene that we would have gotten from the books, but they have attributed it to now her attacking Lanfear?
This is like, I think this is just honestly a total separate deviation. They established, this is actually something I was just talking again with my spouse like 10 minutes before we started this live stream about, can you kill a Forsaken? From my recollection of reading the books, I mean, the Green Man killed Balal.
Yep.
So there are times where Forsaken died without using Balefire. Then there's, and then this is spoilers, and I don't know if I want to mention this to you as somebody who has not read the books, but let's just say resurrections are possible.
Yeah, I know that.
If you're not Balefired, resurrections are possible, but you usually don't have the same body that you.
Yes, you get transferred into another body. So that's kind of a question I was going to have too then, because like I feel.
And that's what I'm wondering too. Is it confusing to have different actresses play Lanfear?
Correct. So obviously we know from the trailer.
Or are they just going to change this where she's still alive, and.
Well, that's the thing. They've changed it because based on the preview for next week, Lanfear's fine. Like she recovers and she's hunting after them. So this is a clear distinction that they're going with, it seems. It's one of the ones, though, that I'm like, I get it in the sense that, like, it's going to be so confusing. Exactly, Elena. They want to keep the same actors. Yeah. So I'm like, okay,
I allow it too. I didn't mind it. I was shocked. I was like, what the, and I thought, maybe it was, you bring up a good point of it. Maybe it was the Balal moment, but Lanfear is such a pivotal Forsaken that they would never, offer first, especially. So I think yeah, it's acceptable, and I think they should be hard to kill, and I think otherwise it does take away the dynamic. I am just a little tired of people getting stabbed, and that's the problem I have with the show in general is so many people have been stabbed and just fine the next moment, and I don't know.
So yeah, Daniel makes a point here about her eyes at the end. I did see that other people have been commenting on that too. I don't know the extent of what that means, but that's okay. But that's fine. But yeah, I did know that basically you could be transferred like into a new body type thing, which is fine. But that's kind of the culmination of the episode. Did you watch the trailer for next episode?
I did. I didn't really gather a lot except for what Maureen was saying to Rand about the Forsaken, about
So
being Ishi, and then Ishi never died on the Eye of the World, and then he released Lanfear. I didn't really get too much from that preview, honestly.
So we're meeting the worst love interest in the next episode, and that is Caillou. And
No, I think that's Avienda, actually.
I think it's Fail. Do you think it's Avienda?
She veiled herself. I think that's the actress for Avienda.
Okay.
She was in a cage. She was in a cage.
He was in a cage.
It's supposed to be Gaul in the books, but
that's what I thought. I was like, I hope they're not like combining this and making it all Fail, because the language sounded. Because okay, remind me, the Aiel, excuse me, in the cage in the book was a man, correct?
Yeah, it was Gaul.
Yes. He says the exact line that the character says in the preview for next week. Do you like to dance, Pere Navarra? Like, which is, I love that line in the book. So I'm happy that that's in there. Oh, Elena, you're totally fine. My husband has read them and my best friends have read them. I know quite a few things that happen. So I just haven't actually physically read them. I'm not worried about being spoiled. The books have been out for many, many years. Not a big deal. But yeah, I think Avienda is going to replace Skull. So that's a bit interesting. It'll be curious to see how they go with that. But Lanfear, yeah, is definitely still in Lanfear's body for next episode. So that's going to be interesting.
I like the actress, so I'm cool.
I think she's great. Yeah. Honestly, like you and I have discussed this in terms of casting. I feel like if they had put actresses in front of me and said cast Lanfear, I would have looked at that woman and been like, that's the one. That's Lanfear. So I'm no way, shape, or whatever upset about her staying and playing Lanfear.
I want to go back to a comment. I want to go back to a comment Chris made here. And this is my biggest problem with the show. It's just so many fake outs. And I get it. I think there's a way to do, some intense moments where are these characters going to get out of a situation without, like he mentioned, just faking out the audience. And I just feel like it's slightly insulting to me. I don't know. But
okay, so
this is my issue. I guess that's just my issues with this show is just
that goes back to the question of earlier. Are they giving a good show regardless of to whether or not it is an adaptation or a direct adaptation of Wheel of Time? Is what they're giving audiences good?
All in all, I think so. I don't hate the show. I am ready for the next episode when the next week comes up. So that tells me that I am invested in the show. I'm enjoying what they are presenting despite huge differences from the books. It all just goes back to, again. Yeah, I know. He's like the only one who's not allowed to come back.
Exactly. Stuck.
Yeah, it's very selective on who gets to live and who gets to die, and it is tough with all of the stakes where too many, too much. There's no stakes. I feel like they need to raise that bar a little bit because we've seen so many people get brought back up.
Yeah.
I don't feel like we're getting those stakes.
I agree.
I do want to touch on Go ahead, finish that, because there was
I
like
was just gonna say, I feel like there is lack of consequences for pretty much most things in this world that they've created, in the sense that, yes, Uno, I believe, is dead, but in terms of, I know that Rafe confirmed Nynaeve wasn't dead at the end of season 1, fine, but we've had that thing. We then had her fake out death in the Tiangrill. I understand that Lanfear's eyes blinked at the end of the episode, but like, we know at some point Maureen is gonna be reconnected to the One Power. Like, there just is never any finality, I feel like, with major things that are happening. And that's what cheapens it for me, is I'm sitting there waiting to feel like there's a consequence of something or someone's action that's severe. And it's not something that I want them to make up and add into the show, but there are moments in the books where things are severe. And it's like, you could just lean into that a little bit. And that would, I feel, just level the playing field. And that would be much better for me.
So yeah, the one thing I want to mention that we didn't hit was, there was, once again, Nynaeve was, having a moment, of
Oh my God, yes. We
reflection.
missed that in the Leandrin
Yeah,
review.
and
I'm so sorry.
no, that's okay. She's back at the gates, or the acceptance test, and I think this was the last. This I gave this one really good props, because this is the last moment we see Leandrin as this new type of Leandrin persona.
Yep.
This is the moment where we see, and they share a moment, this connectivity, where I think Nynaeve is finally like really trusting Leandrin, because from the first moment she met her, she's like, that woman's a snake.
Yeah.
And here it's like, I love the line that she says, where she says, no wonder they don't allow you to teach novices.
Yeah.
And they kind of both smile, and kind of have that moment. And then the switch goes on in Leandrin, where she tells her about Perrin in the nonchalant way. Now, I don't want you to do anything rash, even though I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you want to do something rash.
Yeah.
She knows Nynaeve by now, so she knows that that's going to affect her. And I thought that was a really powerful way to present that. And then later, when her and Egwene are leaving, and then Elaine joins them, I thought that was a nice touch. They did something really cool, camera-wise and lighting-wise, with Leandrin. When she exposes herself from, the shadows, she almost looks like she's wearing black.
I think she is wearing black.
She was wearing red when she got a little
but
more on
it
the
does
right.
look black.
But I think they darkened her red to look more black. And I thought that was just visually really cool. And her face just had that, like, almost like a fade kind of thing. In fact, I thought it was a fade coming out of the shadows, because it was very, her, the contrast between her dark clothes and her white face. And so I thought that was really cool. I'm not sure why she cast magic at them, because
they were willingly gonna go with her.
They were willingly gonna go already. And so I'm not sure why she did that moment. And we do see her in the ways.
Yeah.
So I think she is taking them through the ways to get to Falme, but I'm not too sure why she turned then and not waited until she got the girls to the Sanchen.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wondered that too. I was like, it seems like it would be way harder to drag 3 of them into the ways, as opposed to like getting them to the ways, and then if they then decided that they weren't going to go into it, kind of attacking them at that point. But I was like, this just seems a little bit awkward, especially unless they're like at a waygate right now and I just don't realize that, which could be the case, because as we know from the books, waygates can be in cities. It doesn't have to be in those desolate places that they place them in the show. But yeah, I am curious to see where they go with that a little bit. Curious to see if we're gonna get our Sanchen storyline with Nynaeve and Egwene specifically. But obviously, like, they've now geared up everyone to, in some way, shape, or form, be connected. I am curious now, because it seems like Moraine and Rand are going to leave Kyrene, but if Matt and Min are on the way to Kyrene, are they going to go through Falma on the way to get there? And that's how everyone's going to kind of end up in Falma. But it seems like they have now established that everyone is supposed to be headed towards the same general location.
Yeah. Just thinking about the books, we know Egwene gets captured, and actually Min is with them, and she gets captured.
Yes,
too.
she does too. Yeah, but they realize they can't use her the same way. As
they're not going to use her the same way. So I think it's probably, I think it's better if they just focus on one girl that can channel rather than two. So I hope they don't capture either Nynaeve or Elaine. I hope they do go a little more the book route here. But we'll see. I mean, again, adaptation. I'm to the point where I'm just unexpected about what they're going to do with anything. I'm just a little tired of the cheap shots and the fake outs and all that. But I all in all, I'm finding enjoyment from the show. Yeah.
I think that we are going to see in the next episode that Padden Fane has given the horn to them. That's my guess. If not, maybe Padden Fane gave the horn to Ishii at the Dark Council, and Ishii is going to do something with it and give it to the Shan-Chan. I don't really know. But I would think it's going to be Padden Fane, personally.
So question for you. Do you think they're going to end in Falme by episode 8? Because we're halfway through the season.
I know, we're halfway through.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, and I for some reason I thought there was 10. So I'm thinking, oh man, we have 6 episodes and we're already heading for Falme. So maybe they're gonna add the Stone of Tyr in there too, since they are combining 3. And I'm wondering if it's gonna, my worry is it's gonna be another jump when we get to season 3, and then we'll magically be in the Stone of Tyr.
I could see maybe in episode 7 them having the battle at Falma, and then episode 8 being people headed towards Tyr. But again, I'm like, so the stuff that takes them to Tyr, specifically the girls, they need to, I mean, in the book they have the whole thing with Suan, and that's what they're working with Suan to expose the Black Asha. Right. So there's a lot of gaps that I'm not necessarily sure how they're going to do it. Yeah, I mean, I think they could sidestep it, honestly, and that would probably be what happens.
My other thought is Ran and Matt don't get to Falme right away, and they go down to Tyr to get the sword, then go to Falme.
Maybe. I mean, that's entirely possible. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a lot in one season if they do the horn and
it's a lot to do, and that's why I'm wondering if they're going to do a jump.
What is the episode title? But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see them doing a jump step. If you know what the episode title is, drop it in the comments because I am curious. Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's a lot for them to cover, but like the thing for me is that it's just, there's not enough detail. It's all very superficial stuff, and it's not digging in deep into the story. I'm like, I want to immerse myself in this story with these characters in this world, and you're not letting me do it because you're skipping over things and people so quickly. And I understand that this is a book that has so many different characters, but we've seen from other shows, like Game of Thrones for the first several seasons did this masterfully, where there were so many different characters and they varied in their levels of importance and how much screen time and book time that they had, but you knew each of them personally and their involvement in the story. I don't feel that way about a lot of the key characters in this show.
It's funny you said that because I had a friend he told me that he likes he doesn't like any. He likes only like one or two of the main characters, and he likes a lot of the side characters.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly not surprised by that. Okay, Call of the Horn. Yeah, that makes sense. But it's true though. I mean, like, I feel like Matt would probably be most people's favorite character if we were getting further development with Matt. As of this point, what do you think is the most interesting story that they're telling within this story? Because I feel like it's not one cohesive story. It's individual stories that just like they know people, and that's kind of
Right.
their connector.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm if I'm totally separate the adaptation from the books,
Yeah,
I'm still not really invested in Rand too much.
agreed.
I
I'm not either.
and Matt I think is kind of cool. I would be if I just watched this blind, I would say Matt's pretty cool,
Yeah.
but again, not really invested in Matt. I thought the dagger thing was a little dropped too soon. It didn't have
Yes.
the impact you were talking about. Moments that have to have impact. And then they don't really deliver in the end. And the dagger was one of those for me. I don't
Hmm.
really feel like it delivered. I think he should still feel the connection, but they're not establishing that. But they had the dagger. So
Yeah.
if you're going to have the dagger, are you just changing the dynamics on how the dagger works?
Works,
Um,
right.
uh, Perrin, honestly, I would say Egwene is really, really well developed, and Naive is really well developed.
I
I
was
think they
gonna say,
really
I think the
focused
girls,
on the
this
girls.
the tower is the best developed stuff so far. And I
Yeah,
mean, it's like we said last episode, if they had called the show The Tower, I would think they're doing a phenomenal job.
yeah,
um, but yeah, I think, and
and
this is exactly it. People are like,
maybe they'll deviate, maybe because we're going to get into some rather boring stuff with the girls.
yeah,
Coming up here. So hopefully we get this, the stronger storylines with the males in starting with season 3 and onwards, hopefully. Especially
agreed.
Rand. This is a big moment for Rand, is this stuff that goes on in 4 and 5, if they kind of follow that formula.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, to answer your question, the only way I could see them really doing that is if they do kind of hook up Rand and Logain and he talks to him about the male side of the source, because otherwise I don't, who's gonna talk to him about it, really? Because we've shown that the women don't want to talk to him about it. So yeah, I think that they'll keep just splitting up all that stuff. Exactly. Why is Rand?
Why is Rand?
um yeah, I'm curious to see where it's going, but personally, I feel like the show is a bit boring. I wish that there was more
Except
just
for the end,
art.
this was actually a very not a lot of things happened in this episode.
No, and I mean that's
And
the
not a
thing.
lot
Like,
of good
no,
exposition even happened in this.
yeah,
Um, I when I watched the second time, just to get my notes confirmed, I was fast forwarding through all of Alana's Warder scenes. I was like, okay, this is them
yeah,
yapping about the bond again.
yeah.
And that's kind of what I wrote. I was like, okay, this is them yapping about the bond
Blah blah
again.
blah. Bond.
Blah blah blah. I don't. I wasn't ready to be a warrior. Blah blah.
Yeah,
Um, uh, Moraine. I was glad to see her kind of getting a little bit back into a purpose.
yeah,
But yeah, I didn't really generally care for her scenes either. Lan and Lanfear, actually, those earlier scenes in the show, this episode
yeah,
were kind of boring.
yeah.
Um, I found, yeah, I think uh, really naive, really, and this is not me being biased because I like the character. I think she just had the best stuff in this episode again, and she just had the best stuff last episode.
Yeah.
So
All the stuff is going to her.
yeah, all the
Patrick,
stuff is going to her. Yeah,
this is something that I
the parent
explicitly
scene was
talked about in my review of The Dragon Reborn, in that it was in The Dragon Reborn that it became clear to me as to why Brandon Sanderson was selected as the author to complete Wheel of Time, because Sanderson does this exact thing where it's slow, last 200 pages, everything happens all at once. So yeah, I completely agree that there are definitely pacing issues, especially in The Dragon Reborn, more so than The Great Hunt for me personally. I mean, that would be interesting. I would love if he found it out from Luz. I'm really hoping that at some point we're going to kind of start getting those Luz thoughts and visions or hearings, whatever
or
way they're going to show it.
or the actual Forsaken that's going to teach Rand later on some stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Season 3 is in the Two Rivers. Okay, interesting choice that they're going to make there. I hope we get more, because I'm still hoping that at some point we're gonna get the original prologue. That's my hope.
I would love backstory for the Forsaken. Those are
Yeah,
characters that I feel like Jordan himself really never really fleshed out. Uh,
yeah,
um, he eventually, when we got to the later books, we got, because of the process of elimination, we did get more scenes with some of the later existing Forsaken, the ones that survived to the close to the end of the books. But I would like more. I want
yeah,
to, like you were talking earlier about getting invested in Lanfear. I want a little bit of that. What
100%.
made them,
I would love
maybe what
that.
made them turn, what, something like that. That's wishful thinking on my
Sure.
end, but I think it'd be pretty
I
cool.
think it's what most people are wanting though. Like we want to see these characters and that's the whole thing. It's like you can have a show where you're
It
telling a
doesn't follow
story
the
but
book, yeah.
developing characters in a way that it doesn't 100% follow the book, but like you get to know these people and that's what is important. Like
Yeah.
it's just so important. And
All I'll
I
say is, all I'll end with is, I just don't want another Warder Aes Sedai bondage episode. I don't.
no.
I
Yeah,
can't
that's the thing.
do
And I
that.
think we're still going to get one though, because I feel like at some point at the end of the season, it's going to be a dilemma as to whether or not Lan rebonds with Moraine or if he goes and bonds with Nynaeve. And I mean, the way that they kind of slid Alana telling him in this episode that, well, Nynaeve is going to need a warder of her own soon is, I think, the way that they covered the conversation in the book that Moraine had with Lan, excuse me, in which she says to him, testing his bond, which I really didn't like in the book, to see like if he would want to bond with Nynaeve when she became a full Aes Sedai type thing. So I think that this was maybe the way that they got around it because it just felt sort of reminiscent for that for me in this dynamic. But um yeah, I'm hoping we'll see some better development going forward. I'm hoping now that Moraine and Rand are back together, maybe there will be some explanation to him as to what the Forsaken really are, what they can do, and then they can convey that to the viewer. It seemed like from the preview for next week, we're going to be getting more of Perrin, not necessarily much more of Matt, but
Or
not
Matt.
and we're going to get more of the girls as well, as they're traversing the ways with Leandrin. So, what are your hopes for next episode?
Um, the obviously the pivotal moment for Egwene here. This is a really hard time to be Egwene. This is going to be rough for her. What's going to happen if they follow through with? Generally, it does seem like they are going this direction, but is it even going to be her, or are they going to switch it over to Nynaeve or Elaine or somebody else? But we'll see. But these chapters, I remember in the book, that were just so intense, and you just felt for her. And God, you hated the Sanchin so much. And this is kind of what we
Yes.
talked about the episode with Uno dying. It's like,
Yes.
we don't need to know that these people are assholes. I mean, we are going to get that
We're going to know. Yeah.
when we get those torture scenes and how they treat their Dame
Yeah.
with Egwene. I really hope for some. I want to see some intense stuff here. It'll make me uncomfortable, of course, but
Yeah, but that's the point. So I
yeah,
hope
and
so
that's the point.
too.
Yeah.
Exactly. I hope so too. I was physically
I
uncomfortable when I
and I
read
just
that.
want more Matt. I mean, just give us some Matt. Make us want to cheer for him when he picks up that horn by the end of episode 8. Hint, hint.
Yes,
Blows
I'm
the
eager
horn.
for that. I agree with Light Blinded Fool here. I would love to see Rand and Moraine go into a setting to escape Lanfear. I think that would be super interesting. I think that would just be
That's a
really,
cool
really a
thing.
great
Yeah.
idea. Yes, we would get more of that. Avienda is what people are wanting to
Avienda,
see.
yeah, be curious how they present Avienda for sure.
Yep. It's not, yeah, exactly. It's that reflection on the experience, which is fine. But I do think if they do it well in the show, it's something that when Egwene is being taught like her leash thing basically and is given her master, that scene is chilling in the book. Like I actively felt physically uncomfortable
Yeah,
when reading it.
yeah.
So yeah.
All those scenes with Egwene. Yeah, we never really see it, but we know it's happening. We definitely know it's happening.
And then when she's talking to Min about everything that she's been through and stuff, like you feel uncomfortable, and you should feel uncomfortable. So yeah, I thought that those were good
And Min
things.
doesn't get off easy either. I mean, she's not channeler, but she was still getting the punched, and she was getting physically punched and
there was a lot of stuff going on. So I'm hopeful that we'll still get some of that drama and tension. Maybe we can hope.
We got 4 episodes.
We've
I
got
like
4.
hope that's gonna happen, but 4 more episodes of water bonding and all that. So
yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, my major hope for the last 4 episodes is that we use our time appropriately. That's my major hope for the last 4 episodes. But we will see. Yes, it is transmitted via past events, and that's fine. I mean, if they will probably need to change that a little bit in terms of our show medium, but we'll see how it presents itself. But thank you, everyone, for joining us for our episode 4 of season 2. We will be back a week from today at 8:00 Eastern to talk about episode 5. If you are watching us on the rewatch, let us know in the comments down below what your thoughts were about the episode. If you liked it, what you're hoping to see. If you didn't like it, all that fun stuff. And as always, thanks again for joining us. Thank you all for talking in the comments. We appreciate it so much. And we will see you guys next time. Have a great week, everybody, and great weekend.
Bye, guys. Thank you.